făcut bani, mașina.
Are you involved in
Le băteați pe fete? Nu le-ați bătut pentru că n-au mai vrut să se prostitueze pentru dumneavoastră.
Este adevărat că ai violat de două fete? Ai constituit un grup infracțional organizat? Ce-au găsit anchetatorii?
Pardon.
Why do you take the girls? Are the accusation realistic? Are you guilty?
Atenție la mașini, vă rugăm.
The Matrix has attacked me.
Happens when one of the internet's most controversial personalities suddenly finds himself caught between three countries, multiple criminal investigations, and an extradition battle that could take months. Andrew Tate is now facing a dramatically more complicated legal fight. And this is not simply about the allegations he has been dealing with in Romania. In July 2026, Tate and his brother Tristan were arrested in Miami after UK prosecutors authorized additional charges against them. According to Britain's Crown Prosecution Service, Andrew Tate now faces 42 charges, while his brother faces 17, bringing the combined total to 59. The allegations include rape, arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, assault, and offenses involving indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. But before we go any further, remember this: these are allegations, not convictions. Andrew Tate denies wrongdoing, and he is entitled to a fair trial. Now, here's where the story gets even more serious. The British case isn't happening in isolation. Tate has already been involved in a separate criminal case in Romania, where prosecutors charged him and his brother with allegations including human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized criminal group.
The words you found on the internet, and Sophie doesn't exist.
On your
Subject.
voice?
Move on to the next subject.
No, I think I'll stick on this one for a minute. So there's other places in that same website where you say you get girls to fall in love with you and they do what you say. Convincing women to take part in some kind of business arrangement doesn't work long term because they're emotional. You've got to get them to fall in love with you.
Once
That's
again,
coercion, that's emotional manipulation, that's abuse.
what you found are clips from the internet, some text from the internet, and you're going to sit here and tell me that that's the reason I should.
Your website, your words.
It's not my website.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Check my website. No, it's not. Check my website. Next.
It's the website you've taken down, and I wonder why those comments have been taken
No
down.
website's been taken down. My website is the same. It's been the same for a very long time.
The comments on this website, on the original website, have been taken down, and I wonder why.
You are accusing me. I'm guessing. What you're trying to say is you're accusing me, and you're trying to say that I'm guilty.
Those allegations have also been contested by the brothers. For years, Tate has presented himself as someone who could stay ahead of the authorities. But now, authorities in different countries are dealing with the same man from very different directions. And the latest development has put him inside a U.S. detention facility, while Britain tries to bring him back to face its allegations. If you're watching this right now, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We want to know how far this story has reached. Because what happens next could determine whether Andrew Tate eventually stands trial in the United Kingdom. And the road to that courtroom is far from over. The Tate brothers were arrested by U.S. Marshals in Miami on July 18, 2026. British prosecutors immediately began seeking their extradition to the UK, but extradition isn't automatic. A U.S. court now has to deal with the legal battle over whether the brothers should be surrendered to Britain. And Tate's legal team has made it clear that they intend to fight. As of the latest proceedings, the brothers remain in U.S. custody while the extradition process continues. A U.S. judge has indicated that the process could take months, while Britain prepares the evidence needed to support its request. So the question is no longer simply, will Andrew Tate face the allegations? The bigger question is, which country will get to deal with him first. And that is where Romania becomes extremely important. Back in 2024, a Romanian court ordered that Tate and his brother could eventually be extradited to the UK, but only after their Romanian criminal proceedings had concluded. That decision created a legal chain involving Romania, Britain, and eventually the United States. And now, after the brothers left Romania and traveled to the United States, Britain is pursuing extradition from American soil. For someone who built an enormous online following around projecting confidence, control, and freedom, the situation could hardly be more complicated. But there is another important detail. The UK has not simply repeated the original accusations. In July, prosecutors announced 38 additional charges connected to 4 further alleged victims. For Andrew Tate specifically, prosecutors authorized 7 additional rape charges, 3 charges involving arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, 3 assault charges, and 19 additional offenses involving indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. The Crown Prosecution Service says the alleged offending connected to those additional charges dates back to between 2010 and 2017, and prosecutors have emphasized that the criminal proceedings are active. That means this is a developing legal story, not a finished case. And Andrew Tate remains legally entitled to defend himself against every allegation. So as this extradition battle continues, the world is watching what happens next. Because the next major decision could determine whether Tate remains in the United States fighting extradition, or eventually finds himself transported to Britain to face the allegations in court. And if you think this story has already reached its biggest moment, wait until you hear what could happen next. Part 2 is where the extradition battle gets even more complicated. Andrew Tate. The extradition fight gets real. The biggest question now hanging over Andrew Tate is not whether the allegations exist. It is whether the United States will actually send him back to Britain. And right now, that decision is nowhere near finished. Tate and his brother Tristan have remained in federal custody in Miami since their arrest on July 18, while they fight Britain's attempt to extradite them. Their lawyers have asked a U.S. judge to release them on bail, arguing that their enormous public profile makes it extremely difficult for them to disappear or flee. But prosecutors see the situation very differently. They have argued that the seriousness of the allegations, combined with concerns about flight and public safety, justifies keeping the brothers detained. And now the clock is ticking. Britain has until September 16 to submit its full extradition request and supporting evidence to the United States. That means the case could continue for months before there is a final decision on whether Tate will actually be sent to the UK. This is where the story becomes bigger than Andrew Tate himself, because there are now legal proceedings stretching across multiple countries: Romania, the United Kingdom, and the United States. In Britain, prosecutors say the brothers face a combined 59 charges. For Andrew Tate, the allegations include rape, arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, assault, and offenses involving indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. The Crown Prosecution Service says the latest charges relate to 4 additional alleged victims and bring the number of alleged victims in the UK case to 7. But again, these are allegations. Tate has denied wrongdoing. His legal team has also argued that the British case is politically motivated and that the accusations do not establish his guilt. And that distinction matters. A criminal charge is not a conviction. The evidence still has to be tested through the legal process. But while that process continues, Tate remains behind bars in Miami. And then there is Romania. Romanian authorities have been investigating Tate and his brother for years over allegations including human trafficking and forming an organized criminal group, with separate allegations involving minors also part of the ongoing Romanian proceedings. The United Nations Human Rights Office confirmed in August that those Romanian proceedings remain ongoing. So even if Tate somehow defeats Britain's extradition request, his legal problems may not simply disappear. And if Britain succeeds, then the internet personality who spent years building an image around absolute control could find himself facing a courtroom thousands of miles from Miami. But there is another twist. The US judge is not deciding whether Andrew Tate is guilty or innocent of the British allegations. The immediate issue is extradition. In other words, the American court is dealing with whether the legal requirements are satisfied for Britain to take him into its custody. And eventually, depending on how the process unfolds, the US Secretary of State could have a role in the final surrender decision. That is why the next few months could be critical. Tate's lawyers are fighting to get him out of detention. British authorities are preparing their full extradition package. And the American court is being asked to decide what happens to the brothers while that battle continues. The latest hearing has already been pushed back. A federal judge postponed the hearing concerning whether Andrew and Tristan Tate should remain detained, with the next hearing scheduled for August 27. So for now, there is no final extradition ruling. No British courtroom appearance has been scheduled, and no conviction has been entered. But the pressure is clearly increasing, because this time, Andrew Tate isn't simply fighting allegations from Romania. He is fighting an active extradition request from Britain while sitting inside a US federal detention facility. And that puts his future in the hands of a legal process he cannot control with social media posts, interviews, or millions of followers. If you're still watching, comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Are you watching from the UK, the United States, Romania, Nigeria, or somewhere completely different? Because this story has become an international legal battle. And the next decision could change everything. But here's the part that many people may have missed. The British case itself has become much larger than the original allegations. And in part 3, we're going to look at exactly what prosecutors are accusing Andrew Tate of, and why those additional charges could make the extradition fight even more serious. Andrew Tate. The allegations behind the UK case. What exactly are British prosecutors accusing Andrew Tate of? And why did the case suddenly become so much bigger? That question is at the center of the extradition battle now unfolding in the United States. According to Britain's Crown Prosecution Service, Andrew Tate faces 42 charges, while his brother Tristan faces 17. Together, that is 59 charges connected to allegations involving 7 women. The latest charges were authorized in July 2026 and relate to 4 additional alleged victims. For Andrew Tate, the allegations include rape, arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, assault, and offenses involving indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. The alleged offenses date back to a period between 2010 and 2017, but there is something important viewers need to understand. These accusations have not been proven in court. Tate denies the allegations and has repeatedly maintained that he is innocent. His lawyers have also attacked the prosecution as politically motivated. So right now, there are 2 very different narratives. Prosecutors say they have a serious criminal case that should be heard in court. Tate's legal team says the accusations are unproven and that he is being unfairly targeted. And that disagreement is now playing out thousands of miles away from Britain, inside a federal courtroom in Miami. But the British allegations are only one part of Tate's legal problems, because Romania has its own case. Romanian prosecutors have been investigating Tate and his brother since their arrest in December 2022. In 2023, prosecutors formally charged them with rape, human trafficking, and forming an organized criminal group to sexually exploit women. The brothers denied the allegations. And even in 2026, the Romanian investigation has not simply disappeared. Romanian prosecutors have continued expanding investigations involving Tate, including allegations connected to human trafficking and money laundering. That means Tate's legal situation is not one simple case. There are multiple investigations and proceedings happening across different jurisdictions, and now Britain wants him extradited from the United States. That creates an extraordinary legal situation. Imagine being accused in one country, investigated in another, and sitting in custody in a third country while lawyers argue over where you should be taken next. That's effectively where Andrew Tate finds himself. And his lawyers aren't sitting quietly. They have been fighting to get both brothers released from U.S. custody while the extradition proceedings continue. But prosecutors have pushed back, arguing that the seriousness of the allegations and concerns about flight risk justify continued detention. The brothers remain in federal custody as the process moves forward, and the next major deadline is crucial. Britain is expected to provide the United States with its full extradition documentation by mid-September. Until then, this legal battle is far from over. And there is another question that could become just as important. What happens if the United States actually agrees to send Tate back to Britain? Would he immediately go to trial? Could his lawyers challenge the decision? And how would his existing Romanian legal situation affect what happens afterward? Those questions don't have simple answers yet. What we do know is that Andrew Tate's legal problems have now moved from a Romanian courtroom story into a major international extradition case. And for a man whose public image has always been built around appearing untouchable, the next few months could be the most consequential period of his legal life. If you're watching this right now, comment where you're watching from. We want to know whether this story is reaching viewers in the UK, the United States, Romania, Nigeria, or somewhere else around the world. Because in Part 4, we're going to look at the Romanian case, and why even winning the UK extradition fight may not necessarily make Andrew Tate's legal problems disappear. Andrew Tate. Romania is still waiting, but here's where Andrew Tate's legal situation becomes even more complicated. Because while everyone is watching the extradition fight in Miami, Romania has not simply disappeared from the picture. For years, Romania has been at the center of the legal storm surrounding Tate and his brother Tristan. Their original Romanian case dates back to their arrests in December 2022, when prosecutors accused them of serious offenses including human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized criminal group. The brothers have repeatedly denied the allegations. And now, even after Tate left Romania, the Romanian proceedings remain ongoing. The United Nations Human Rights Office confirmed earlier this month that separate criminal proceedings in Romania are still continuing, including allegations involving human trafficking and the trafficking of minors. That means the United Kingdom is not the only legal threat Tate has to worry about. There is a Romanian case waiting in the background, and that creates a major complication. Remember the extradition request Britain made in 2024? A Romanian appeals court ruled that Tate and his brother could eventually be handed over to British authorities, but only after the Romanian criminal proceedings were finished. So even before the latest arrest in America, the legal situation was already extremely complicated. Romania had its own proceedings. Britain wanted the brothers, and now the United States is holding them while Britain tries to secure their extradition. 3 countries, multiple investigations, and one international legal battle. But there is another reason Romania matters. Tate's lawyers have previously pointed to his conduct while under Romanian judicial restrictions as evidence that he should be trusted not to flee. During the current U.S. proceedings, his defense has argued that Tate and his brother complied with restrictions imposed on them in Romania and therefore should be released while they fight extradition. Prosecutors, however, have raised concerns about flight risk and public safety, and that's why the American judge has not simply released them. As of now, the brothers remain in federal custody in Miami. A hearing about whether they should remain detained was recently postponed until August 27, after their lawyers requested more time to respond to prosecutors. Meanwhile, Britain is preparing the evidence supporting its extradition request. The United Kingdom has until mid-September to provide the necessary material to U.S. authorities, so the next few weeks could be extremely important. But here's what viewers should not confuse. An extradition proceeding is not a criminal trial. The American court is not deciding whether Andrew Tate committed rape, trafficking, assault, or any of the other allegations. Those accusations would have to be dealt with through the appropriate legal proceedings. Right now, the question is whether Britain can legally secure his extradition from the United States. And while that happens, Romania's own investigations remain part of the bigger picture. Tate has continued to deny wrongdoing. His lawyers have challenged the accusations and described the legal actions against him as politically motivated. But prosecutors and authorities continue to pursue their cases. And that brings us to perhaps the biggest question of the entire story. What happens if Britain actually gets Andrew Tate? Would Romania immediately step aside? Would Britain prosecute him first? Could the Romanian proceedings affect what happens afterward, and how long could all of this take? Those questions are still developing. What is clear is that Andrew Tate's legal saga is no longer something happening quietly in one courtroom. It has become an international case involving Romania, Britain, and the United States. And while millions of people debate Tate online, the actual decisions will be made inside courtrooms. If you're still watching, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And if you want to follow the next development in this case, make sure you subscribe, because Part 5 brings everything together. And we'll look at what could happen next if the United States approves Britain's extradition request. Because that could be the moment when Andrew Tate's fight moves from Miami to a British courtroom. Andrew Tate. What happens next could change everything. Andrew Tate has spent years telling the world that he cannot be controlled. But right now, his next move may not be entirely up to him. He is sitting in a U.S. federal detention facility in Miami while Britain prepares the paperwork needed to pursue his extradition. And the deadline is approaching. According to U.S. court records, Britain has until September 16, 2026, to submit its full extradition request and supporting evidence. That doesn't mean Tate will automatically be sent to Britain on September 16, far from it. The extradition process could continue for months, and Tate's lawyers have already made it clear that they intend to fight. In fact, his legal team has argued that Tate should be released on bail while the case continues. Their argument, that his enormous public profile actually makes him difficult to hide. They say it would be extremely difficult for Tate to travel secretly or disappear without being noticed, and they have proposed conditions, including surrendering his passport and electronic location monitoring. But prosecutors aren't convinced. They have argued that the seriousness of the allegations and concerns surrounding flight and public safety justify keeping the brothers in custody. And that disagreement is now heading back into court. The latest hearing concerning whether Andrew and Tristan Tate should remain detained was postponed until August 27, 2026, giving the defense additional time to respond to prosecutors. So as of right now, there is no final decision sending Andrew Tate to Britain. There is also no conviction. The allegations against him remain allegations, and Tate has repeatedly denied wrongdoing. But if the extradition request moves forward and ultimately succeeds, the situation could become much more serious. Britain would then have the opportunity to prosecute the allegations that have been brought against him. And remember what is at stake. The Crown Prosecution Service says Andrew Tate faces 42 charges in the UK, while Tristan Tate faces 17. The allegations include rape, assault, facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, and offenses involving indecent images and extreme pornography. Those charges relate to alleged conduct involving 7 women. Again, Tate denies the allegations, but prosecutors now have to prove their case through the legal system, and that's why the next stage matters so much. At the same time, Romania remains part of the picture. Separate criminal proceedings involving the Tate brothers remain ongoing there, including allegations connected to human trafficking and trafficking of minors. So even if the British extradition battle ends one way, Tate's wider legal problems may continue. This is no longer just an internet controversy. It's an international legal process. The United States is deciding whether Britain can obtain custody. Britain is preparing its evidence. Romania still has ongoing proceedings, and Tate's lawyers are fighting to keep him out of British custody, For millions of people watching from around the world, the biggest question is simple. Will Andrew Tate eventually stand trial in Britain? Nobody can honestly give you that answer yet. The legal process has to play out. But one thing is certain. The next few months could determine the direction of one of the most closely watched criminal cases involving a social media personality. And whatever happens, Andrew Tate's story is far from finished. So if you followed this entire story, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United Kingdom, the United States, Romania, Nigeria, or somewhere else? And tell us what you think. Should Tate be extradited to Britain to face the allegations in court? Or should he remain in the United States while he fights the case? Remember, charges are allegations, not convictions, and the courts will ultimately determine what happens. If you want more updates as this international legal battle develops, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because the next courtroom decision could be the one that changes everything. Andrew Tate. The next move could decide his future, but there is one thing people need to understand before jumping to conclusions about what happens next. Andrew Tate has not been found guilty of the allegations against him. Right now, he is fighting an extradition process, not a criminal trial, and that distinction could become extremely important. As of August 2026, Tate and his brother Tristan remain in U.S. federal custody, while they challenge Britain's attempt to bring them back to the United Kingdom. A federal judge has postponed their detention hearing until August 27, giving their lawyers additional time to respond to prosecutors' arguments. Meanwhile, Britain is preparing the evidence for its extradition request. The Crown Prosecution Service says it is seeking the brothers' extradition over both the original charges and the additional charges announced in July. For Andrew Tate, those additional allegations include 7 counts of rape, 3 counts involving arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, 3 assault charges, and 19 charges relating to indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. And here's where the legal battle could become complicated. A U.S. judge would have to consider whether Britain has provided enough evidence to satisfy the requirements for extradition. If that process eventually moves forward, the case could then reach another level of decision-making within the U.S. government. Reuters has reported that the U.S. Secretary of State could ultimately have a role in deciding whether the brothers are surrendered to Britain. So there is no simple button that gets pressed, and suddenly Tate is on a plane to London. There are legal steps. There can be challenges, there can be appeals, and the entire process could take months. But there is another possibility that Tate's supporters are watching closely. What if he is released from custody while the extradition proceedings continue? His lawyers have argued that his enormous public profile makes him unlikely to flee because, in their view, it would be extremely difficult for him to travel anywhere without being noticed. They have proposed conditions such as surrendering his passport and being monitored electronically. Prosecutors have argued the opposite. They believe the seriousness of the allegations and other concerns justify keeping the brothers detained while Britain prepares its case. And that disagreement is exactly what the upcoming detention hearing is about. Not guilt, not innocence, not whether the allegations are true, simply whether Tate should remain in custody while the extradition process continues. That distinction is crucial, because eventually, if Tate is extradited, the real criminal case would have to be fought in Britain. And that is where the allegations themselves would face scrutiny, evidence would be tested, witnesses could be questioned. The defense would have its opportunity to challenge the prosecution. And ultimately, a court, not social media and not public opinion, would decide whether the prosecution proves its case. Tate has consistently denied wrongdoing. So at this moment, nobody can honestly tell you what the final verdict will be, but we can tell you what is happening. An international extradition battle is underway. Britain wants Tate returned. Tate is fighting to remain in the United States. Romania still has separate proceedings involving him. And millions of people around the world are watching. So now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments. And if you followed this story from the beginning, Tell us what you think the next major development will be. Will Tate eventually be extradited to Britain? Will his lawyers manage to keep him in the United States? Or will this legal battle continue for months before we get a definitive answer? Whatever happens, one thing is certain: this story isn't over. If you want to stay updated as the extradition case develops, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and come back for the next update. Because the next courtroom decision could be the moment everything changes. Andrew Tate. The countdown has begun. The next few weeks could be some of the most important weeks yet in Andrew Tate's international legal battle. And right now, the clock is running. Tate and his brother Tristan remain in U.S. federal custody in Miami as they fight Britain's attempt to extradite them. But their lawyers are not giving up. They are arguing that the brothers should be released while the extradition process continues, pointing to their public profiles, proposed monitoring conditions, and their previous compliance with Romanian legal restrictions. Prosecutors see it differently. They want the brothers to remain behind bars, citing the seriousness of the allegations and concerns including flight risk and public safety. And now another court date is approaching. The detention hearing has been postponed until August 27, 2026. That hearing will not decide whether Andrew Tate is guilty or innocent. It will focus on whether he should remain in custody while the extradition process moves forward. But there is an even bigger date ahead. Britain is expected to provide the United States with its supporting material for the extradition request by September 16. After that, the legal battle could continue for months. And ultimately, if the U.S. process reaches that stage, the question of surrendering the brothers to Britain can move beyond the courtroom. So imagine the situation. Andrew Tate is sitting in a Miami detention facility. Britain is preparing its case. Romania still has separate criminal proceedings involving him, and Tate's lawyers are fighting to prevent him from being sent to Britain. At the same time, British prosecutors have expanded the number of charges. The Crown Prosecution Service says Andrew Tate now faces 42 charges in Britain, while Tristan Tate faces 17. The allegations include rape, arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, assault, and offenses involving indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. But once again, these are allegations. Andrew Tate denies wrongdoing, and none of these accusations should be treated as a conviction. The evidence will ultimately have to be tested through the appropriate legal process. That's what makes the next stage so important, because the internet can argue all day. Fans can defend him. Critics can condemn him. Millions of people can debate the story on social media. But none of that decides what happens next. The courts do. And if Britain eventually succeeds in obtaining his extradition, Tate could find himself facing the allegations in a British court. If the extradition process is defeated, however, the situation could take another direction. Either way, the legal battle is not ending anytime soon, and Romania remains a major part of the story. The United Nations Human Rights Office said this month that separate criminal proceedings involving the Tate brothers remain ongoing in Romania, including allegations concerning human trafficking and trafficking of minors. So even if one legal battle ends, another could remain. That is why this case has become so unusual. It's not simply an allegation against an internet celebrity. It's an international legal battle stretching across jurisdictions. And for Andrew Tate, the next major question is no longer what he says on social media. It's what happens inside the courtroom. So now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments. And if you followed this entire story, tell us what you think. Will Andrew Tate eventually be extradited to Britain, or will his lawyers succeed in stopping it? Whatever your opinion, remember that the allegations remain unproven unless and until a court establishes otherwise. If you want to follow this case as it develops, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because August 27 is approaching, September 16 is coming. And the next major decision could change the entire direction of Andrew Tate's legal battle. Andrew Tate, The fight behind bars, Andrew Tate's legal battle, has now entered a phase that could become just as important as the extradition request itself. Because before Britain can potentially get him back, Tate first has to deal with a much more immediate question. Will he even be released from the Miami detention center while the case continues? And right now, the answer is still no. Tate and his brother Tristan have remained in U.S. federal custody since their July 18 arrest, while they challenge Britain's attempt to extradite them. Their lawyers have argued that their enormous public profile makes them unlikely to disappear if released. They have even proposed conditions such as surrendering their passports and being placed under electronic monitoring. But prosecutors aren't buying that argument. They have maintained that the seriousness of the allegations and concerns about flight risk and public safety justify keeping the brothers detained. And now, the brothers are waiting for another major court hearing. A judge postponed the detention hearing until August 27, after Tate's lawyers asked for more time to respond to the government's arguments. Think about what that means. Tate isn't currently fighting just one battle. He's fighting to get out of jail. He's fighting Britain's attempt to extradite him. And behind all of that, Romania still has its own ongoing criminal proceedings. Meanwhile, Britain has until September 16 to provide the United States with its full extradition request and supporting evidence. So the case could continue for months. And that is exactly what makes this situation so unpredictable. If Tate is released, he would still have strict legal conditions hanging over him while the extradition fight continues. If he remains detained, he could spend even more time inside the Miami facility while lawyers fight the case from outside. And eventually, if the extradition process succeeds, the battle could move to Britain. But here's the part that should not be overlooked. The British allegations are still allegations. Tate has repeatedly denied wrongdoing, and neither he nor his brother has been convicted of the British charges. The courts will ultimately have to determine what happens. So while social media is already filled with people declaring Tate guilty or innocent, the actual legal process is much slower. Evidence has to be presented, arguments have to be heard, and judges have to make decisions based on the law that could take months, and possibly longer. But one thing is already clear. Andrew Tate's next major chapter may not happen on a podcast, in a luxury car, or on social media. It could happen inside a courtroom. So if you've been following this story from the beginning, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments. Because this case has now become an international story, and people are watching from all over the world. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next major hearing could determine whether Tate stays behind bars or gets another chance to fight the extradition case from outside custody. The date is set. August 27, and when that hearing arrives, the question will be simple. Does Andrew Tate walk out of that Miami jail or stay behind bars? Stay tuned.